Good morning, everyone. Like Nikki says, my name is Eva Bagili, and I do work at the Chicago Ridge Public Library. I'm the adult associate at that. I'm also a committee member, and I have been for the last maybe 6 years. Again, I'd like to thank you all for joining me this morning. We're going to be having a conversation with two of our past winners, Geralyn Hesslau Magrady and Alan Peck. Two epic winners, I might say, two that stand out in my memory. Michael was the first person I heard speak at a convention, and he's actually the reason that I joined the committee. And Geralyn won at my library, so that's a really good memory for me. So let's just get started. How are you guys doing today? Michael, Geralyn, we have a few questions just to ask you today. The first one being, I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe I'll just start with Geralyn.
Sure.
What are your feelings about this period that we're all going through?
This is a difficult time. I think it's definitely a time for self-reflection. I have my students writing about that. This concept of people who are, like, I'm a people person, so this is kind of not like me. I can't wait to give a hug again. But for a lot of people, this is just a really difficult time, and in order to stay grounded and stay sane, a friend of mine keeps on reminding me, you got to stay connected. You got to stay connected. And it's a matter of figuring out what that means to each individual person on how to stay connected. And for me, we got phone calls, it's writing. I can't go out and write in specific places, so I have to use the internet. But it's a time for self-reflection of the things that we want to prioritize in life. And it's also a time for thinking about the things that we appreciate, the things that we've lost, and the things that we want to get back into our lives again. And it's that connection, I think, that we really need to focus on. But it's a difficult time. It's a difficult time for my students. It's a difficult time for my friends, and for me, for our families, for everyone who's been affected personally, and not personally, but personally in the world. So yeah, it's been a little difficult.
How was the transition over to online work for you? Did you guys transition quickly, or were you teaching before online?
One of the benefits that our school had is that we were an iPad school from the beginning. So for our students, the iPad, using the internet and using remote learning, I think we were a step above the curve with a lot of different things. I don't have to worry about my students not having internet access or having the devices. I know that they have them. So our grade books were already online, and our lesson plans, the actual teaching part of it, that was kind of, everyone's trying to learn. We had already gone through a few different workshops prior to this. But yeah, it's been a challenge, and it's been a learning. We're all in the learning curve right now, all of us. And I miss my kids. I just miss them. I miss them so much. And even seeing them in their homes, it's different. It's different. It's not the chemistry of our classroom. It's not the bonding. It's not that connection. And that part is missing. That bond is missing. And I can feel it. I can feel it. And I miss them so much. So much.
Michael, same question for you. Tell us a little bit about what you've been feeling about during this period that we're all living in.
Well, I mean, as just to piggyback on, excuse me, what Geralyn was saying is, from a personal and a human standpoint, I mean, it's devastating for all of us, and you don't want to get too much into the details of that. But as I was saying to my wife, it's a tragedy that's too awful to put into words, and when you're an author and you say something like that tells you a lot. But all we can do is, you distance, you wear a mask, and then just we're going to all get through this together. That's the only way we can. From the standpoint of being an author, it's, you know, it's sad to see what's going to the industry. I know that which are operating on thin margins to begin with are shut down right now, and you've got publishers who are bumping all of their new releases back to the fall. There's a paper shortage for printing, so it's quite difficult. On the other hand, any difficult time presents an opportunity, and for us, for indie authors, it actually opens up some things for us. Ebook readership, I think I saw in Forbes in March, they were saying that ebook readership is up as much as 30%. And I've got to believe that a portion of the people who are moving to ebooks are going to stay there, which again is an advantage for indie authors. And I think I read that demand for ebooks from libraries is up heavily as well. So again, it's a difficult time, it's a sad time, but as an author, there are opportunities.
Are you finding the time at home, and this question is for both of you, I'll go back to Geralyn and then I'll have you answer, Alan. Are you finding the time at home harder because there's less structure, or are you able to focus on writing?
I guess a little bit of both. I mean, there are some days that, you know, I keep my structure. I have my schedule of what I'm doing and what I need to get done. Every day is different because I'm a teacher. So every day, you know, sometimes 5 emails, sometimes 50, depending on what day of the week, when things are due. There's more grading, there's more curriculum creation. So for that, I tend to try to stay as scheduled as possible. I have this wonderful opportunity that I help out with the music school at the Friendly Music School. And so I'm here. This is where I am right now in the Friendly Music School doing this. So I, you know, bring in that time too. And then there's my writing. So I usually do my writing late at night or early in the morning. But that has kind of stayed the same. The sleep is still the same. I don't do much. But the whole thing, I mean, it's not very scheduled, but then again, I schedule the things that have to be and then work around that. So that hasn't changed at all.
And for me, I mean, I think I was laughing about it before because I was thinking, I don't know what this says about the way I was living before this happened. It's changed my life as far as I regained 2 hours in my day where I don't have to commute to work. But other than that, I realize I'm used to working on computers and often, you know, doing things remotely. And so it was just a shift to more hours at home. As Geralyn said, I mean, it does shake your schedule up and make you realize that if things are going to be organized or regimented, you're going to have to do it yourself. So I do the full-time job. I've actually regained writing and editing time in the evening, again, because I'm not commuting. And then even bought some gym equipment so that I work out and not go crazy that way. But it is a major adjustment. I think what's a little odd is that it was easier for me to make than I thought it might be.
Do you feel, Michael, that you're writing differently though, as far as topics? Has it inspired you to go into different genres?
So right now, I actually, I'm in the editing phase of the books that I'm going to be putting out. And so I'm grateful for that, because I think that when you are going through times of difficulty, it can be tough to get the creative juices flowing, or at least not have those things seep into what you're doing. But when you're editing, it's a lot easier. You've already got something on the screen, you're looking at what you've composed, and you know, you're fixing it up rather than just trying to come up with something from scratch.
Has it given you new inspiration for future topics?
I'm sorry?
The pandemic, has it given you like inspiration for future topics that you might want to get into or write about?
It actually has. I think maybe another sad thing that you can say about, you know, on both fronts, in terms of inspiring my villains, you know, watching the way that that some people are behaving and exploiting this, and I don't want to get political, but just, you know, there is some bad behavior out there, and I realized that sometimes you might look at your bad guys and wonder, is somebody really going to behave like this? And then you look at the way some of the people are behaving in the real world and realize, yeah, they are. That's not unrealistic, unfortunately. On the flip side, it does the same thing for your heroes and for your good guys. You see people just putting themselves out there at a time like this, at great risk and sacrificing. And you understand then what's going to motivate your good guys as well, and that there are actually people who are driven by things like that and who will behave like that, and that's inspiring.
Definitely. What about you, Geralyn? Has it inspired you to write differently?
There are a couple of things. Differently, yes. There was, I do a lot of writing on sites. So if my book one ended at the World's Fair of 1893 and it opened, book two opens in that. So I'm still working on book two, long time coming. But I enjoy going to Jackson Park and doing some writing there, or I'll go to the cemetery of my ancestors, St. Boniface Cemetery up on the north side of Chicago. And I just can't get up and do those things anymore. So I'm very dependent on the internet for research. And that's not always the type of writer that I am. I tend to get inspiration from my surroundings, and I like being in the environments. So I have done some research, and one of the things that I am grateful for is last summer I taught a Chicago history class, and my students were, oh my gosh, they were awesome. And at the end of the class, I said, I'm working on book two, and I'd like to have you give me a little something that you can add to it. What would you like? What's something that we talked about during this class this summer that you would like me to put and a lot of them, they wanted something with H.H. Holmes because we read Devil in the White City. But they were very specific about finding something in Jackson Park that belonged to H.H. Holmes. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's kind of creepy, but maybe that has some kind of connection. And so I've been looking for that link and that connection to H.H. Holmes for my character. And, Adam Selzer was just on last night with this event where he talked about H.H. Holmes for the Mysterious Chicago tours. And so that's kind of interesting, for me to, getting to these live streams that a lot of people are doing right now. So I'm getting inspired on Facebook. I've never been inspired by Facebook before, but there's some great live streams musically. The local music scene over here in Berwyn and Oak Park is amazing, and I'm lucky and blessed enough to be a part of it through the friendly music community. And so we've got some great musicians that are keeping up with their lyrics and their songs and their connecting. And so it's been great for me to turn to music and lyrics, poetry, which I haven't done a ton of in the past couple of years, but I'm getting back into it. So that has helped me too. And my main character, Olivia, is, dabbles in writing as well. So I have used her as kind of my voice in some of the poetry that I'm creating right now. But the pandemic itself, we've gone through in history many different diseases and pandemics before. And so that's another part of my research. And now I'm kind of living through it. So I'm getting some kind of experience and knowledge my own self that I can bring to Olivia's character that I never thought that I could bring before. So that's an interesting little twist for it.
You kind of answered my next question, which is what's inspiring you and what you're reading right now. So Michael, maybe you want to answer that question for me. What is inspiring you and what are you reading right now or even listening to, since music seems to be a big inspiration?
What helps me a lot, I write when I listen to music while I write. And so I listen to a lot of ambient and drone. Some of it is kind of obscure if you're not into that type of thing, but a lot of Stars of the Lid, Kyle Bobby Dunn, Brian Eno's ambient stuff, and then also a lot of 50s and 60s era jazz. I don't write to that, but that's a lot of what I'm listening to. But in terms of what I'm reading a lot of series books since I'm writing a series. And so I started reading the Expanse books. I switch off between that and the Longmire mysteries and also some of the Tana French books, the Dublin Murder Squad books. I find that I can do quite well. So I write urban fantasy, but if I read other genres, I can get a lot out of that. And The Expanse actually is, in many ways, a mystery that's, with a sci-fi cloak. I've been reading some of the Gentleman Bastards books, the Murderbot books, and then in terms of what's been inspiring in literary fiction, The Overstory by Richard Powers is just beautiful. I finished that recently. Murakami's Kafka on the Shore. I've got Kurt Vonnegut's Breakfast of Champions waiting. And in terms of really what's inspiring, I mean, those are, I would pivot to Vonnegut and say, Slaughterhouse-Five is one of my favorite books, and I'll still go back and look at that. Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove is a favorite. Pete Dexter's Deadwood, and Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451, and The Martian Chronicles. So all of that is lurking in the background. And if I find that I feel I'm kind of wandering too much into the voice of something I'm reading at the time, I can always go back to some of the books that I know inspired the voice of the first one.
So one of our viewers just asked, and this is for both of you, but we'll start with you, Michael, since I have you. What tools have you used to promote your book, and how do you let the world know you're out there?
So that's a funny question. That's actually a weak spot of mine, because I came out with the first book in 2014 and was doing what promotion I could then. I have not actually been doing much promotion because I've only had the one book out there for a long time while I've been working on the follow-ups. And what I'm editing now, those will be books 2 and 3. So all I can really talk about is what I plan to do. And I think from everything I'm reading nowadays, it's, Amazon ads is very competitive and a lot more expensive than it used to be, but those are effective. Trying to do some BookBub advertising is another thing, and then possibly dabbling in Facebook ads.
Geralyn, what about you, hon?
I haven't done much, that's for sure. Like Michael, I haven't, my book was the 2016, so I've been working on book 2, and in book 2 is supposed to be a trilogy. So as I'm working on book 2, I'm making notes of what book 3 is looking like. However, I'm still doing book clubs, believe it or not, in my local area. There's word of mouth. Also, I tend to do fundraisers. So when a friend of mine is doing some kind of fundraiser, I will donate 10 books for a book club, and then there's word of mouth, and then those book clubs have been inviting me out to more book clubs, and that's been kind of exciting to still have that fresh and to get some feedback, current feedback at book 2 and yes? I'm sorry, I thought there was a question. But other than that, like I said, with fundraisers, that's kind of my main thing right now. I had through April, if you bought my book, all the proceeds went to the employees here at Friendly, because they've all, they weren't working during that time. So yeah, it's more fundraisers and word of mouth than anything else that I do right now.
Do you utilize Twitter or Instagram, any of those?
Not as much as I should, or that I did. When the book first came out, I did a lot with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. The website was always updated. There were emails that went out, but kind of life got in the way, and there wasn't another book to promote. And I have basically just kind of let that's it. In the realm of the roles that I have in my life right now, writing is still my hobby, and it's not my life. And I wish things could be different, but I'm very content and happy and blessed to have the job that I do, and to be a mom of 2 amazing guys, and to have the Friendly and Fenwick, and all the different roles that I have. So writing is still on the shelf, and I try to get to it as much as I can.
And I think
Michael, I
that's one of the
believe,
things, if I could just jump in and just build on that. I mean, it's one of the little sayings that they throw around is WIBO, and it stands for Would I Be Better Off Writing? And so I assume it sounds like Geralyn's in the same situation I am, which is if you've got a full-time gig and in normal times you're really only able to work on weekends. I mean, maybe if you get up early and don't do morning or evening. Ideally, if we were full-time authors, we'd be doing both writing and marketing at the same time. But when you've got limited time, and would I be better off writing? You're almost always better off writing, especially when you're moving as slowly as I am. Years have now gone by, and I'm now going to be coming out with what was going to be book 2 is long enough to now be 2 and 3, but I've had to just devote all the time and effort to writing so that I'll have something to market. And I think that's a challenge that a lot of authors face.
definitely. Since I have you on the screen, Michael, could you tell us a little bit about what winning the STBF contest has meant to you?
So first of all, it was, a lot of it was validation, because to me, libraries and librarians are absolutely the gold standard. They are recommending books to the community rather than trying to sell something or make a buck. It's their job to really get things out there that they think people are going to enjoy. So to have them recognize my efforts was just a huge boost, and as I say, a lot of validation. During that first year when I was going around and speaking at libraries, that was just getting myself in front of people, getting the book in front of people. And it has also, it continues to dividends even this, after the, I've gotten involved in the Indie Author Project, which I highly recommend, and I'm sure that the library people and the Rails people can talk more about that. But I'm now finding that because of that, and then also because of the win itself, my book's showing up in libraries in Alaska and in even some places around the world where it never otherwise would have been available. And so really it's that combination of just validation and then getting your name and the book out there.
Geralyn, I remember the day that you won. It was really a special day for all of us. Could you tell me a little bit about that and what it meant to hear your name being spoken as the winner that day?
That day was crazy. That was just, I had been working on this for like 10 summers, and it was kind of my own, it was my own thing. People would joke like, oh, she's still writing the book. It was going to take forever. So when I finally had it finished and it got submitted, not everyone really knew that it was done. It's been such a personal, it was such a personal experience for such a long time. But when I made it into the semifinal round, I'm thinking, wow, that in itself gave me the little lift to start telling people that it had been published, it's out there. And then when I found out I was a finalist, I thought, this is crazy. This is great. I can't believe this is happening. And I remember that we were supposed to write 2 speeches, one kind of an introduction where all 3 of us had to write something, and then the second speech was for if you won. And I didn't write it. I didn't write that one because there just in my head was, this was validation enough for me to know that in this contest that I love libraries. When there was a post on Facebook saying, what would you want to do right now? Because everyone's in this shelter in place. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? I'm like, I want to go to a library. Like, I know that sounds like a geek world, but that's what I wanted to do. I want to get into a library. I want to be surrounded by my books, and I want to be able to sit down and do research and just be there, because that's where I feel comfortable. So getting this award and hearing my name and seeing, the cover come up, I mean, the whole experience was just, I was in awe. I was in complete awe. And I spoke on the cuff right there, but it was an amazing day, and I'll never forget that. it's just the whole validation thing that Michael was talking about was the biggest thing for me. Winning that award, and more people have read this book than I would have ever thought. It was, like I said, it was my own personal project. And once people started reading it and started asking me to come to book clubs, it was like bearing my soul, like walking naked or something like that, that other people were talking about my characters and getting inside my head for the first time. And it was really, yeah.
So you noticed a significant increase in book club invites after that moment, or was it just kind of like steady?
Right when I first got the award, yeah, I had book clubs 2 or 3 a month for about a year. Yeah, it was. But I'm a teacher, in the community, so all my students, more than adults, all my students knew my journey because I was bringing up the book and excerpts with my students when we would write all the time. So the kids at St. Luke, where I was teaching before, and the kids at Fenwick, they knew this was happening. So there was a lot of their parents who come in their world, and then my own sons had gone to Ascension, which was another local school, and then I was, involved with so many different things in the Berwyn and Oak Park communities, and so yeah, one person would tell another person, yeah, we had Geralyn over, and then little newspaper articles would come up in the local newspapers. All the teachers that I used to teach with when I was 22, first year of teaching, they came out of the woodwork. They're still together and have a book club, so they invited me to come, and it was wonderful reconnecting with them. Yeah, that first year, it was. I had probably 3, sometimes 4 different book clubs every month. So that was a wonderful surprise for me.
You have a little local bookstore, I think, that was very good in advertising you, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, there's the Looking Glass. Steve over there, I haven't seen him in a little while. But yeah, Looking Glass, I would always make sure that my books were there. So if there were local purchases, that people would go over to the Looking Glass bookstore to buy them from him.
I remember trying to get you to come to our book club, and for some reason we just couldn't connect in time for you to actually show up to ours.
Yeah.
But hopefully in the future.
I have to come back to the library for like a meet and greet, right?
Yeah, definitely. Who knows how this is going to work now in the future. It might all have to go virtually. But I think we have some plans coming up. What about you, Michael? Have you noticed an uptick in invites to book clubs, or were you doing things a little bit differently after you won? I know sales may have gone up a little bit, right?
My sales definitely went up. I think things were different for me. I think I only ever did one book club, and admittedly, it kind of turned into the book and wine club as those things typically do. I mean, it was a lot of fun, but most of mine were library appearances, and then that really was where the interest came from. And I think I saw a boost in reviews, which was nice. I mean, I think when you're given again that validation or really just this air of legitimacy, then some of the people who really do have to pick and choose what they're going to take the time to review will then take your book more seriously as a consideration. And all of a sudden I did see an uptick in reviews, which was nice.
I have tried to seek them out, and it has been a challenge. So what advice would you give her to maybe put her book out there?
Eva, you were muted for the first part of that, so I think maybe.
Oh, I'm not on mute, but can you hear me?
Now I
Try
can.
it one more time.
Okay. A viewer asked, how do book clubs know about you? I've tried to seek them out, and it has been a challenge. So is there any advice, Michael, that you can give her to maybe put her book out there to get people interested in reading?
I think Geralyn might be the better one to answer that. It sounds like she's had more success with it than I have.
Geralyn, do you have an answer for her?
With book club, a lot of just word of mouth. And if you put it out there, If you're a part of writing groups, whatever groups you're a part of, if you want to make an event, or if you're going to do, like right now in this type of situation, you could create an event on Facebook that's going to be a book club. And so you might put it out there through Facebook or through Instagram or Twitter, whatever your social media accounts are. But for me, a lot of it was word of mouth. One book club would tell another book club, and having this award, I have to say, this was huge for me. So once my name got out there and the book got out there, and I also, you know, Chicago historical fiction was kind of something that people were really interested in, you know, just not even the book or the style or the characters or have anything to do with me, just the genre right there was something that it helped me. It helped me a lot. So when one person would hear about it, I also had rails, and I had the Illinois Library Association. Whenever there were conferences, they would have my book. I had a couple of different book clubs where they won it. They won the book at a raffle through the Illinois Library system. So that has always helped. So I guess putting yourself out there is, especially social media wise, because that's your opportunity to share something once and then let other people share it for you. So once you get good at that, that's one way of doing it. But I have to say, it's not just me. A lot of it had to do with getting this award and through the library system. Over the summer, I had this wonderful opportunity to meet a woman who had won, like I said, for fundraisers. I donate 10 books at a time with my phone number that says contact me, and I'll be a guest at your book club. And that goes over well. I have met some really interesting people during those book clubs, but one from this past summer was up in the Edgewater area, and the woman happened to be on the board for the Edgewater Library. So we did a personal book club with her group, which was phenomenal, with the most really interesting conversations. And I love the fact that the conversations are still going on, even though I won this in 2016. But then she had me return to the Edgewater Library to give a presentation. So yeah, just kind of put yourself out there and don't be afraid to donate your books to different things. I donated them to different libraries, and yeah, the fundraiser thing is something that I believe in. It's my way of giving back. And the library talks, go to your library and see if you can give conversations and do a question and answer. Joliet was one, I'm still doing those too. So in Joliet, you know, just a few months back, it was in the fall, I think, I had been out in Joliet, and that was a real fun time too. So anyway, just put yourself out there. Always put yourself out there. And with the book clubs, the more your name gets out, the better.
What is the farthest you've driven for a book club?
Michael, go out to Galena.
Yeah, yes, I did.
So I think there's a connection between the soon to be famous author project, and whoever the winner is gets to Galena and be a part of their Lit Fest. And that was really fun. You know, they put you up at the hotel, you feel like a big star, and get to do a presentation. And that's probably the farthest that's definitely the farthest, Galena. I had a couple of gigs out in DeKalb a couple of different times, but that was Galena. Have you gone any further, Michael?
No, actually, I would have to say Galena was the farthest, and also I think it was a highlight for me too. As you said, that book festival is wonderful, and I mean, I love the town anyway. So that was, I think, the farthest and the best.
Yeah, I still have, I want to get back there because there's this little boutique. I'm not a purse person, but I found this purse that I just loved in this little boutique, and I still have it. It's the one that I use, and it's so banked up, but I gotta get back to Galena because I'm not a purse person, but everyone knows me by this purse at this point. Little offset. But anyway, Galena, great place. I would love to go back and do some research at Galena and kind of add that town to the story in book 3 at some point, because I really enjoyed it there and I love the history of it. Got a chance to talk to a lot of different people about the history of Galena. So.
Michael, there's a question for you. How old were you when you first started to fall in love with writing?
How old? When I first started writing? Well, actually, when I was a kid. In fact, it's really funny because I just got some boxes from my parents' house. A whole bunch of stuff that was boxed up, and it was an old short story of mine that I wrote for 3rd grade called Superman versus the Spider. It was just this absolute exercise in copyright. Luckily, when you're in 3rd grade, you don't know that that's a problem. And so it was Superman battling a spider who, there used to be a cartoon called Klondike Cat, and the mouse that was his nemesis was named Savoir Faire. But when I was a kid, I didn't know what Savoir Faire was. So my spider was named Sabwob Faire. That was SABWOB. And then I don't even know what I did with Faire. So I can tell you it goes back at least as far as 3rd grade and possibly a little farther than that.
Geralyn, what about you? How old were you when you first started to fall in love with
Gosh,
writing?
it's probably around the same age. I remember the Bubblegum House. I think I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, and I wrote this story called The Bubblegum House, and I wrote the entire story on pink paper because the symbolism was there, right, in the 2nd and 3rd grade. But I always liked to write, but I'd say my 4th grade teacher, Miss Belchek, who became Miss Werner later on, she instilled poetry in the 4th grade. And from there, it was just playing with words, whether it was a description or a story or an essay or poetry. I loved poetry. I still don't think that I'm the best of poets, but I love tinkering with it, and I love getting my students inspired to write it. And the greatest honor is when my students tell me that this is the first time they enjoyed poetry is when they're in my classroom and when we share. So that's a really neat thing for me. But yeah, I was young. Definitely 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. Mm-hmm.
So Geralyn, I have to jump in. Did you just say your teacher's name was Miss Spellcheck?
Velchek, VLC.
Because I was going to say, Miss Spellcheck, I think, is the best teacher name I've ever heard.
Isn't that cool? Yeah.
Another question just popped up from our viewers. When you do presentations in general, what topics do people want to hear about? Michael, maybe jump in and we'll have Geralyn answer as well.
I think, what a lot of people wanted to hear about is if they've read the book, and the book club I did, this was the case. If they've read the book, they want to find out, a little more about the characters or what you're willing to tell them. I think a lot of these, garner the interest of people who are also writers and who either they're pretty far along and then want to get their stuff out there, which I think is reflected in the questions that we've heard so far. Or there are people who, they've always had a story inside them and they want to get it out, and they're just, depending upon what road of life they're on and what they do for a living, they may have had their creativity stifled, or even if it's not, they just don't know where to start. And what are the tools, what are the software? And so a lot of people want to know that type of thing too, and just the mechanics of how do I do this? And then how do you make time and all of those things? And then it can get more esoteric in terms of where do you get your ideas from?
My turn? For me, it runs the gamut. A lot of times with the library system, sometimes I am speaking for the genealogy club because for those people who know, I took the names for all of my characters from my ancestors. So my main character, Olivia Haas, she is the name of my great-great-grandmother. And all the main characters, not Will, but Livia's line, that is my personal line. So a lot of people ask me to come out and talk about genealogy, how genealogy inspired my characters. Sometimes I'm asked to come out to talk about Chicago history because everything is researched in that. And sometimes people want me to come out and talk specifically about being a middle-aged writer. To have a novel for the first time. I'm 52 right now. Yikes. 52 right now, but I didn't realize how many people were inspired by that. I had given this one presentation at the 19th Century Club here in Oak Park, and you know, it was the first time I ever did like one of those TED Talks with a big screen, and you know, you got the little microphone around, and I had the PowerPoint presentation. It was a sit-down luncheon, and you're feeling pretty important. But there were so many people in that audience that wanted to talk to me afterwards about saying thank you for inspiring me, because I have all these stories and I have started this, but I figured I'm too old to do this. My gosh, no one is ever too old to do anything. And again, that's one of the things that I try to have my students do, is talk to their grandparents or aunts and uncles, get their stories, because everyone has a story to tell. Whether that's a fictional story or a personal memoir, everyone has a story. And age should never, ever stop us from getting that story out. And so that was probably one of the most inspirational for me, to know that I touched so many people just in having my own story of saying, hey, I tried it. You know, I didn't stop, even though there were a lot of things that could have prevented me from finishing this book. I didn't stop. And so it was a lesson to my sons. It was a lesson to myself. It was a lesson to everyone that I meet, really, that you can finish what you start, and age doesn't have to be stop you from that. Yeah.
Michael, what programs or applications do you use to upload your work?
Well, to upload my work, I'm using, I go through Amazon, so I'm going through Kindle Direct. I've also, for paperbacks or print rather, I'm also doing Amazon, and then doing Ingram Spark for international. For my writing, I'm using Scrivener, and then for my formatting, I'm using Vellum. And I played a little bit around in terms of story development with another program called Aeon Timeline, which was good, but then ended up just going back mainly to Scrivener for the story building and the writing, because you can do all of that in one package. You can format doing it using that as well, but I just found that that Vellum is easier.
Geralyn, how do you upload your work?
At this point, originally I had done it on my Mac, and I had different problems with trying to get formatting done. So now my second book that I'm working on right now, I have it in my Google Drive, and I don't have any social. I have Scrivener, but I haven't been able to figure that all out. So I do it old school. So everything that I have right now is going through the Google Drive.
One last question from our viewers before we move on. Someone wants to know about your writing process. Do you have a special writing place, a routine when you write? Michael or Geralyn, whoever wants to pop in first.
Well, I'll go ahead and start. The Friendly is still my place for my writing spot. Whenever I get the opportunity to be in the Friendly Coffee Lounge, that's my creative spot. So it's not necessarily a time, and I think I've always said this, but so that, and then whenever things come up, I always have my little notebooks. I wish I had it right at my side right now, but it's in my purse over there. But I have little notebooks with me, and those are the notebooks where I have all of my ideas. And I also have the little notes section on my phone and the voice memo. I wish I could say that I was more organized with my schedule and my time and my notes, but I'm not. I just make sure that I have things at my fingertips to jot down my ideas as they're happening. So notebooks, notes and memos on my phone, and little personal notebooks. Those are the main things that I have. And then when I get into my focus mode, I don't have a particular time or day that maybe I should. But when writing hits me, bam, I'm there for hours. And so if I'm in my comfortable spot, my place, whether it's here at the Friendly Coffee Lounge or it's somewhere else at a park or something on location for one of my scenes, that's the biggest thing for me.
And for me,
Michael?
you know, just to start off with what Geralyn was saying, going to Evernote, I find that to be really helpful. In terms of a ritual, I always write from my desk at home, and like Geralyn, I would love to be able to say that I've got some sort of schedule set out, except that, you know, when things were normal and I was only writing on weekends, what usually happens is I say that I'm going to start writing in the morning, and then I only start writing once I've eliminated every other thing that I could throw into the day to procrastinate and just distract me. I'll clean and I'll go shopping. You know, it's always around 3 o'clock for some reason by the time I settle down. And then little rituals that I have to flip the switch on in my brain and say, you know, it's time to get serious. This sounds really new agey, but I actually burn incense, and I know you don't look at me and think like that's a guy who burns incense, but I actually do. It's the that's just a trigger that gets me going. And then, as I said, I listen to a lot of ambience. So when the music gets going and the incense is going, then I know, like, all right, now it's time to actually, you know, sit down and do something.
That's definitely a good way to do it. I'm going to turn it over. Thank you so much, both of you, for answering our questions today and for joining us. I'm going to turn this over to Anna. She works at Rails, and she's also a committee member, and she would like to talk a little bit about Pressbooks before we finish for the day. Anna, are you there?
I am here. Can you all hear me all right? Awesome. I love that thumbs up. Great. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and for having me here. As Eva said, my name is Anna Beam. I am the e-content specialist at the Reaching Across Illinois Library System, and I'm here to talk about some of the tools and the services that we provide for authors and writers all over the state of Illinois, you know, along with the soon-to-be famous Illinois Author Project. So what I'm going to do via the magic of Zoom, I'm going to share my screen and show you guys a little slide that I put together with information. And I think we're going to make this available to everyone via the soon-to-be famous Illinois Author Project blog. So you should be able to access this information after the webinar is over. So I'm going to talk about a service that Rails provides called Inky.org. And this little cheat sheet here, you can see I've put together just some quick facts about what Inky.org is. So first and foremost, it is a website. You can go there right now on your computer, just inkie.org. And it has tools and information for writers and independent authors on there. One of the biggest pieces of Inky.org, one of the things we are really excited to provide to everybody, is a portal to Pressbooks. Pressbooks is a really easy to use software that allows authors and writers to take the things that they've written and upload their work. And they can upload it to Pressbooks, design it, edit it, and then export it as an ebook file. So that's really exciting. It really essentially provides you a way to create and essentially publish an ebook. It is available to everybody in Illinois, and what we mean by that is that really you just need to be inside the state of Illinois in order to access this service. You do not need to belong to a library. You do not need to have a library card. You can have a library card and it could have $1,000 worth of fines on it. It doesn't matter. You can still access Inky.org and all of the services that are available on that site. And it's provided to you via the Reaching Across Illinois Library System via Rails. You've heard us say Rails a few times today, and your local library. So that's where, really, really happy and proud to offer it to you. Really quickly, there are a few of the things, I've listed here a few of the things that you can accomplish by going to inky.org. So like I said, you can upload your work to Pressbooks, create an ebook file. You can also use it to create print-ready files if you wanted to print off your book. You can also go to inky.org to submit your work to be included in local and national ebook collections via something called the BiblioBoard Library. BiblioBoard is an ebook platform where readers can go to access ebooks, and you have the option through inky.org to send your work to BiblioBoard to be included in those collections and kind of expand your readership. You can also go to inky.org to learn more about the soon-to-be famous Illinois Author Project and the Indie Author Project, which is soon to be famous, started here in Illinois, and then it was taken national. There is a nationwide contest, as well as contests in several other states. And so you can submit your work to be included in these sort of larger programs as well. And then the other exciting thing about inky.org I want to make sure to mention, because I think most authors, most writers are also readers, is that you can go to inky.org and discover other local and independently published ebooks and works. So really quickly, I think I've got like a minute to do this. I'm going to pop over to the website real quick and just show you guys what it looks like. So, all right. So this is inky.org. Like I said, you just go to inkie.org, and right here on the home page, you've got just some quick buttons to create ebooks, share ebooks, enter contests. I like to direct people up here to this writers section. When you go up here, a little drop down pops down where you can create your ebook. And that's where you get that portal directly to Pressbooks, where you can upload your work and export it as an ebook file. We also have a video tutorial right here on inky.org. Where you can learn a little bit more how to use Pressbooks. It is a pretty easy to use tool, but this just kind of walks you through it if you need a little bit of extra info. So that's the create your ebook side, and then the share your ebook side. This is where you can find more information about submitting your work to local ebook collections, to national ebook collections, and then learn more about the soon-to-be famous Illinois Author Project. And then the reader's side over here, like I mentioned, is where you go if you want to learn a little bit more about some of the materials that are available via the BiblioBoard Library. You can read books that have been published by local authors, independently published. And I will show you real quick just how easy it is to get to BiblioBoard and start reading. Like inky.org, these are all materials that are available to everyone in Illinois. Same story, you don't need a library card, you don't need a login. I just clicked that link and I was taken directly to this ebook collection. And you can see we've highlighted some independently published books from Illinois authors just right here up top. And if I wanted to, I could head over to the Bone Shroud right here, which was the most recent winner of the soon-to-be famous Illinois Author Project. And I can just click read this. And I can start reading the book right now. It is that quick, that simple, and that fun. So that's my quick little spiel about some of the tools that Rails provides. And like I said, we'll make this slide available to all y'all on the website. Eva, were there any questions?
Thank you, Anna, for giving us a quick tutorial. I just wanted to let everyone know that we will be having a second webinar in the series with two other winners. Our first winner, Joanne Zienti and Daniel Rosenberg. So look out for the information on that soon. And also our contest is still open. It closes May 31st, so just head on over to soontobeFamous.info for more information on that. And one more time, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today, including Michael and Geralyn. Thank you for taking the time to join us and just talk with us today about STBF and what it meant to you and your writing process. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and for all the wonderful questions.